Hi everyone, I hope the new academic year has started well for all of you, despite the unprecedented circumstances in which we continue to find ourselves. As you know, a great deal of preparation went into our reopening, as we worked hard to create a fall semester with the right mix of services and pedagogical approaches to support our student success. I'm truly grateful to all of you who contribute your ideas and energies to our planning and implementation. As a result of these efforts, I feel confident that we've given ourselves the best possible opportunity to complete a successful semester. One positive byproduct of the pandemic is that all of us have been forced to think in new, innovative ways. And we've seen this repeatedly across our departments, from orientation and student engagement to enrollment services, information technology, facilities and residence hall preparation, alumni outreach, our virtual commencement, and other special events. All of this creative thinking and sheer hard work has ensured that Southern continues to operate effectively and interact positively with our many constituencies across these extended months of remote learning and working. And unlike in March, when the onset of COVID-19 caused a very quick pivot to remote teaching, we've had a summer to prepare to offer our students the best learning experience possible given the circumstances. As we move forward, the health and safety of all members of our campus community remains our highest priority. We have effective protocols in place and will continue to provide you with the latest information through our Reopening 2020 website, our weekly campus COVID update newsletter, and our dashboard of positive cases. Each Monday, the dashboard will be updated with the results of the previous week's testing, and you'll find it on our reopening website. I must reemphasize that ensuring everyone's health and safety is a shared responsibility. For the good of our community, I ask you to continue wearing masks and observing social distancing. This is truly the only way that we will be able to keep the campus open until Thanksgiving. I know that the past few months have been a strain for many of you. The pandemic and related issues of economic hardship and racial inequities have tested our resolve and our collective character. Again, I've been so impressed by the commitment, creativity, and nimble thinking of our campus team during such a stressful period. Those qualities and more are going to be needed for the rest of this semester and into the months ahead. Apart from the health and safety issues spawned by the pandemic, there are other immediate challenges that confront us. The most pressing of these is enrollment. Like all our peers, we are facing a decline which at the moment stands at around 5%. Thanks to improved retention and an uptick in graduate numbers, this is about half of our original projection and a help to our bottom line. But worryingly, our new student enrollment has declined by more than 25%. Many first-timers have taken a gap year due to health reasons, or financial reasons, or a reluctance to begin their college career in a campus environment where so much is offered online. In recent years, our entering class has been strong, and so our task in the coming weeks and months is to drive these numbers back up. We have a virtual open house for undergraduates on September 26th and one for the graduate students on October 8th. Our inventive enrollment management team will also be hosting mini open houses for each of the schools and colleges during October, along with small group in-person campus visits that are already underway. They're doing a terrific job. You can do your part by talking up the value of a Southern education, encouraging prospective students to attend, and by sharing the promotions that go out via email and on Southern's social media within your own spheres of influence. As you know, tuition, along with room and board, provides the backbone of our operating budget. Our residential capacity is currently below 60%, in part due to the need for quarantine housing, but additionally because many of our students have opted out of campus living. Our dining services are also impacted, with a reduced number of meal plans and many fewer visits to our food establishments across campus. Our budget numbers have yet to be finalized, but there's no way to gloss over this. We are going to be facing a significant budget deficit, the largest in Southern's 127-year history. As a result, most, if not all, of the plans we had in place prior to COVID-19 will need to be revisited and reviewed under the lens of our new reality. As a proactive response, I have convened a financial task force under the leadership of Executive Vice President Mark Rzuski. This group will extend its scope beyond our traditional budget committee to incorporate community business leaders with the goal of creating a new fiscal plan for the institution. We'll also revisit our priorities and strategic plan and create a series of short and medium-term goals that will help us to recalibrate the directions of our work. I've asked Anthony Richardson, who prepared our 4-point plan for campus reopening, to lead this initiative. I firmly believe that there will be positives for Southern that will emerge from this self-reflection. During our months of remote teaching and working, we have gained expertise in new ways of offering both course delivery and student services, and the best of these may become a staple of our operations in the future. There will be new adventures to explore in academic programming as the fallout from COVID creates new areas of workforce emphasis and opportunities for private-public partnerships. There will also be a renewed focus on community engagement and philanthropic giving, along with grants and other sources of external funding. Our advancement team has already been making great strides, connecting with alumni and donors through virtual workshops, concerts, and more. Finally, as an institution committed to the values of social justice, there must be an emphasis on addressing the systemic racism laid bare nationwide during the pandemic. We must acknowledge that racism and bias exists in our community, and we must work tirelessly to identify and eradicate them. As you know, in July, we welcomed Diana Reza, Southern's first Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. In doing so, we are mirroring an important trend in higher education. The number of Chief Diversity Officers is on the rise, reflecting a growing and needed focus on issues of diversity, inclusion, discrimination, bias, and harassment on college campuses. However, it's important to note that this decision wasn't in response to a major campus incident, but rather in thoughtful recognition of the need for strategic leadership to guide us to the next level of commitment and change. Dr. Ariza can't do it alone. It takes each of us working independently and collectively to recognize, acknowledge, and challenge our biases. We must continue to join together to build a campus environment where equity, inclusion, and diversity become a part of our everyday campus life. Candid conversation is an important part of this process. Earlier this summer, we hosted a thought-provoking panel on racial injustice. Next Thursday, September 17th, Diane will host an online forum titled From Talk to Activism, Southern Students Take the Lead on Racial Justice and Structural Change. Discussion will focus on the need for systemic change at Southern so that every member of our community feels seen, valued, and relevant. The forum will air on our YouTube and Facebook channels, and we'll be sending a link via email next week. Expect to have many conversations in the months ahead about critical topics that will influence our evolution as an institution. In the wake of a crisis, strong communities work together to find positive ways to move ahead, and I'm confident that we will do just that. We certainly have much to build on, starting with the talents and dedication of our faculty and staff and their compassion and support for their fellow employees and students. It may seem a distant memory now, but the 2020 academic year has been heading toward a strong conclusion before the pandemic forced us off campus in March. In one highlight, Asma Rahimyar, a junior majoring in political science and philosophy, was awarded the prestigious Harry S. Truman Scholarship for her outstanding potential for leadership, commitment to public service, and academic excellence. Asma, who plans to practice international human rights law, was the first Truman Scholar ever selected from a Connecticut State University and one of 62 awardees from 773 applicants nationwide. Our faculty had been published in national publications and won notable awards, including our most recently named Connecticut State University professor, Elliot Horsch, an internationally known expert in astrophysics. The system-wide CSCU Board of Regents Award for Adjunct Faculty was presented to Michelle Stower McCarthy of the English Department. And our latest faculty recognition came just last week when we learned that Kenneth Walters, Associate Professor of Psychology, had earned the Mensa Foundation's 2020 Distinguished Teaching Award. Ken, whose research focuses on the mental and behavioral health of college students, has mentored 45 student research assistants since 2012, exemplifying the faculty-student interactions that help define Southern. We welcome 30 new faculty colleagues for this new academic year, including 9 who were hired as part of our 3-cluster searches in cutting-edge fields: climate change, resilience, and the blue economy, equity, social mobility and access, and healthcare informatics. And we continue to produce new programs that meet workforce demand: an EDD in counseling education, a master's in applied behavior analysis, and an executive online master's in public health have all been recently approved by the Board of Regents. While it still seems a long way off, Southern is up for reaccreditation from NECHI with a site visit for fall 2021. Preparation for this is being led by the excellent work of Trudy Milburn, who joined us last semester as Associate Vice President in Academic Affairs, and Tess Marchant Shapiro, Associate Professor in Political Science. Because of the many, many individuals and teams involved in compiling our NECHI report and preparing for the site visit, we are well poised for successful reaccreditation. While there is still work to be done, let me thank everyone for contributing to this critical effort. Also, on the subject of accreditation, our music department and graduate program in library and information science earned this recognition last spring, placing them among just a handful of peers in New England. And the School of Business has moved into the candidacy stage with AACSB for initial accreditation, while in parallel, they completed the design phase of their new building, a facility that will be the state's first net zero construction. Across campus, our new Health and Human Services building is rapidly taking shape adjacent to Pell's Gym. and we are planning a ceremony in October to mark the placement of the final steel beam for the structure. On Farnham Avenue, the Obama Magnet University School has begun its first full year, an exciting collaboration between Southern, the New Haven Board of Education, and the City of New Haven. This national model for innovation and best practices will offer wonderful experiential opportunities for our student teachers. As I mentioned earlier, our staff have done some amazing work during the past few months to provide even greater levels of on-ground and virtual assistance. This is an appropriate moment then to recognize the recipients of our annual Staff Recognition of Excellence Award for outstanding service to the university community. They are Judy Baylor, SCSU's telephone operator; Elisa St. George's, Administrative Assistant in the College of Health and Human Services; Bogdan Zamfer, Director of the Center for Educational and Assistive Technology; Rondell Butler, Administrative Assistant in the Registrar's Office; Sal Rizza, Director of the Office of Orientation, Transition, and Family Engagement; Rob DeMezzo, Director of the Department of Residence Life; Marvin Wilson, Associate Director for Housing Operations; Dee Dee Dahlman, IT Coordinator in Residence Life; Jan Chan, Assistant Manager of Internet Services for Communications and Marketing; and Allison O'Leary, Social Media Coordinator for Communications and Marketing. Congratulations to all of these recipients for their exemplary contributions to our university and our students. And the work goes on. Many individuals were very busy this summer fine-tuning our fall services. For example, the newly named Office of Orientation, Transition, and Family Engagement has launched initiatives focused on helping parents and family members become stronger partners in their students' success. These include a number of virtual learning sessions hosted on WebEx and through our growing family Facebook group, which engages nearly 1,200 parents on a daily basis. Career and Professional Development will offer multiple virtual career fairs this fall, while our financial literacy program was again ranked among the best in the nation last June. The Academic Success Center held a 3-week virtual summer institute emphasizing math preparation for 53 incoming first-year students identified as academically at risk. I should note that the center logged more than 52,000 student visits this year, despite COVID, and 87% of the students who completed the coaching increased their GPA. Wonderful work. Our new undergraduate advising model is launching in full force this fall as we enter the third and final year of the implementation plan. All of the academic advising centers are fully operational. They're staffed by professional advising staff and faculty coordinators, including 3 new advisors, all of whom are Southern alumni. Clearly, we are doing so much that is right, and it's essential that we retain and grow our Southern edge as our world of higher education continues to change. Resources grow tighter, student recruitment pools shrink, and competition grows. As I stated earlier, there will be no going back to the sense of normalcy that we experienced for much of our institution's history. Instead, we must move ahead and make changes in our disciplines that reflect a post-pandemic world and the evolving needs of our students and economy. But for now, our immediate priorities are everyone's safety, the success of our students, delivering a quality education, the advancement of our mission, and ultimately, a return to stability. We've all worked so hard to make this semester a reality, and it's important to remind ourselves to take care of one another, to be patient and flexible, and ensure that we model for our students and each other our social justice values of dignity, respect, kindness, compassion, and civility. We'll get through this challenging time together. And when we do, we'll emerge from it all the stronger with new insights, new skills, and new ways to cope with adversity. Have a productive and rewarding semester. Stay well and stay Southern strong. So right now, we're going to take your questions, and joining me is Dr. Tracy Tyree, our Vice President for Student Affairs, and she's going to read the questions that all of you sent in, and we're going to do our best to answer them. So, what's the first question we have, Trace?
Well, the first few questions have to do with testing, and I'm going to combine the first two. How much of Southern's overall population is being tested for COVID-19? And why is it that only 5% of Southern's residential students are being tested?
This is a very good question because it has come up so much. And at first, we had assumed that we would be doing far more testing. I think that we made that announcement as part of our initial conversations at the front end of the summer. But then, as the summer progressed, we received different direction and different information from the State Health Department and from the Commissioner of Public Health for the state of Connecticut. And so I think this context is very important, that the State Commissioner for Public Health essentially shared with us and advised us that engaging in all of this testing is actually not helpful. In fact, in order for us to test appropriately, we would have to test people almost every single day. Because we're a commuter campus, because of our residential structure. And so between the recommendations of our state health commissioner and actually the recommendations of our four chief medical officers for the four state universities, their position was very similar, that testing every individual would require us to do that virtually every day, simply because of the nature of the virus. So instead, we have been advised to test certain groups of individuals at certain times, and in addition to that, place most of our emphasis on preventative education and preventative care, so masks, social distancing, cleanliness, etc. But you might be able to speak a little bit to the actual numbers and what our COVID coordinator is doing.
Sure, absolutely. And we did put our dashboard up on the website on Monday. So anybody looking for the specific data can go to the reopening website and see the specific data. We are testing our residential students. Originally, every residential student had a test before they arrived and could not move into the residence halls unless they submitted a negative test. And then the first full week of classes, we began what was originally identified as 5 to 10% of our residential students would be randomly tested through until Thanksgiving, when students are no longer on ground for classes. So that happened the first week, but then we got a new directive and really some new funding, because the state is funding this residential testing to move it up to 25%. And I think that was in part motivated by the Labor Day weekend and really wanting to be doubly sure as students return from the long weekend that that we were continuing to be safe. So this week, we're actually testing 25% of our residential students, and we will continue to do that as we move forward until we perhaps are given a different directive. We also have a group of nursing students who, for their clinical requirements, are obligated to have tests, and they are testing on a weekly basis, and so we're providing that test as well. And then in mid-semester, when our athletes begin their contact with each other, right now they are not in contact with each other, but when we get to a phase of implementation when they are more likely to, in pods, be in contact with each other, then we will begin testing of our athletes and athletics staff. So those are the testing populations right now.
Now, if I recall, individuals may opt in to be tested? Can people actually?
You mean on campus?
On campus,
Well, we
pay
are
for
not
testing?
there yet.
Okay.
We are considering that as an option,
Okay.
but had a few obstacles to overcome. At the same time, we were trying to figure out some of this other testing. So we're not there yet, but may have that available in the short run.
Okay, that's great. That's
Yes.
great. I think there are three things that is important for me to articulate here. First, that the testing requirements, the testing protocols, and the number of tests that we will be providing and taking on campus, all of that is directed from the governor's office. That directive goes to the Connecticut State College and University system, and then that directive comes to us. So these are not necessarily campus-based decisions as much as they are decisions that are made specifically by the state and by the system, since Southern is a state agency. So the first thing I think it's important for people to understand. The second thing that I think is very important for people to understand is that I think there's this assumption that there are a lot of people here. And that just isn't the case. In fact, there are very few people here on campus. Most students, most faculty decided to work remotely and decided to take their courses remotely. And we have been trying to provide students with multiple options so that they are comfortable. And if they choose to take online classes or hybrid classes or on-the-ground classes, those options are available, and we've been very flexible as it's related to, as it relates to our faculty in assisting them in terms of the modality by which they are teaching and trying to be supportive there. And so the population is significantly lower. At least 70% of our classes are being taught fully online, and then add to that hybrid and high flex courses, and you have 92% or more of our classes being taught in some virtual format. And finally, I'll say we've actually done very well. The first, we're into the third week, and we have had a total of 2 cases here on campus, and they were both before classes even started. Right. So I think that given the circumstances, we're doing well. People are doing a great job. Your team's doing a great job, so thanks for that.
They are. I am proud of my team as well. So the next 2 questions we've pretty much answered, but I just want to acknowledge them. One is, why are we not requiring commuter students who have classes on campus to be tested? And just I would reiterate that if everyone is following the rules, they're wearing their masks, they're staying socially distant, that we should not have transmission, even should someone, a commuter student, happen to be asymptomatic and have COVID. We believe that if everybody follows the protocols, we will keep others safe. But we talked a little bit about that. And then the next question is, despite indications up to the early summer when there was to be more testing, and then it was changed, and you acknowledge that. So those are some more testing questions.
I'd also refer folks to the website because I think a number of these questions are laid out there. Yes. You can continue to ask questions related to COVID. And I think if you're concerned about a particular case or a particular issue, I think it becomes pretty important to connect with the COVID coordinator here on campus. But we'll talk more about that in a second.
Well, the next question.
There we go.
I have just been informed that one of my students with COVID symptoms has been allowed back into my classroom in my on-ground class. I was told that students are not required to take a COVID test in order to be allowed back to class after experiencing COVID symptoms. This does not seem like a good strategy for containing the spread of the virus. Please explain why this is the policy and why testing of students with COVID symptoms isn't the priority.
Okay, well, first of all, that is not our policy, so let's start with that. Right. And 2, we would never knowingly return a student to class who is symptomatic or who we know has tested positive for COVID. In fact, there's an entire protocol for that. And so why don't you talk a little bit about that protocol?
Sure, and I'm sorry you'd asked me to mention the COVID coordinator
that's
before,
fine.
and I forgot. So if someone identifies as feeling having symptoms that are COVID related, they are asked to submit or have been exposed to someone who has COVID, or obviously have tested positive. There is a form that one submits electronically, and it goes to the COVID coordinator. Erin Duff is our COVID coordinator, and she will go through a vetting process with that person, make recommendations depending on what we learn. There might be the occasion when we would ask someone to be tested. All symptomatic testing happens in student health or off campus. And they would go through a pretty rigorous protocol before a student would be permitted or encouraged to return to campus. So in this case, I think there must be some missing information that perhaps this person doesn't have, because I do not believe the student would be back in class if we were aware of it, and it sounds like the university was aware of it and had been fully vetted. We also know, we're entering flu season. This is a time when there are many different things that share symptoms with COVID, and so maybe the student had a medical examination and it was determined that they didn't need a test as well. So it's hard. I don't know who this is, so it's hard to say exactly what might have happened in this particular case.
I think if you have questions again or have a concern about a particular student or a colleague, again, reach out to the COVID coordinator and she can give direction. And again, the most important thing that we can do is continue to practice all of the safety protocols. So, okay.
Why doesn't Southern offer reduced tuition and fees for those taking online courses for their own, who are choosing to take online courses for their own health and well-being?
Well, this has certainly been a question we've gotten a lot of. And there are two things that I think are important for folks to know here. The first is we actually don't set tuition and fees. Those are set by the Board of Regents for Higher Education in Hartford. Those have been set. They were set last spring. And so there aren't necessarily, at the moment, no reductions or discounts have been built into the tuition and fee structure. But more importantly, one, all of our students are getting the education and the benefits of the education that they would be getting here on campus. I think that our faculty are highly qualified. They're an excellent teaching faculty, and I think that they're utilizing the technology in a way that will ensure that our students continue to get the benefit of the courses that they're taking and the educational experience. We're also offering all of the courses and services that we would normally offer as well. Again, some of them are online, some of them are on the ground, all of them are actually online in some form or combination.
Most of the services are both.
Yes, that's right. And it actually costs more money to provide online services, not less. And in fact, it's a significant amount of dollars. So the notion that online is less expensive, at least to the institution, is actually not accurate. So I think we're doing the best with what we have, and we're going to continue to do our best. I know that's not the answer that particular individual was hoping for, but it's the answer.
And we do really want to encourage all of our students to take advantage of our opportunities for engagement, for activity, for support. Everything student affairs and enrollment services and others offer are available to all of our students in both virtual and on-ground formats. So those fees are being put to good use, and we want you to take full advantage of those. Do you anticipate the university being forced to move fully online before the end of the semester? If so, how do you recommend students stay connected and engaged with campus resources when they are already having a hard time doing so with our current hybrid model?
Okay. I hope not. Okay, the goal is to be open for the whole semester until we reach Thanksgiving. That's why we have engaged in all of this work. That's why folks have worked so hard to both protect and keep safe our students in our community. And also that's why our faculty and staff have trained throughout the course of the summer to be prepared to offer classes and services in a virtual way. I think we're doing it now. Yes, there have been some bumps in the road. There are going to continue to be some bumps in the road. I think one, that if we have to transition, we're ready to do that. We're ready to do that on a moment's notice. I hope we don't have to. But if we need to, we will, and we're ready to do that. Secondly, the most important thing that students can do is to be engaged now and not wait for any transition. And if you're struggling now with regard to hybrid or high flex courses or any of the services, then I think it's critical that you connect with your faculty, that you connect with your academic advisors, that you connect with the resources that are available to you so that those things can be smoothed out, because it would only become more challenging once we flipped over to online, not less challenging. And so if you're facing challenges now, reach out to the resources that are available to you right away so that we can help you navigate the now, and it will help you navigate what might be next.
Yeah, and if I might add,
Please.
I would just ask that each member of our campus community, our faculty and staff, if a student comes to you with a challenge and it's not your area of expertise, please help them get to the right place where someone can help them. Our Academic Success Center is offering a plethora of support online and on ground, as they always do, but they have enhanced that, particularly through academic coaching. And for students who are struggling with technology, they can even help coach through some of the different modes of online learning. Our counseling services are available. All of our Southern Success Center, FYE, and our INQ faculty are working super hard to support our first-year students. Our Orientation, Transition, and Family Engagement program is just waiting for our new students to let them know what they need. We have many and multicultural and access programs, and I could go on. We just have people waiting for students to let us know that they need help. And so whether the student reaches out directly or someone else helps the student get connected to a resource, we don't want anyone to ever feel like we're not there and that there's not someone who can help them cross through whatever barrier they're experiencing.
Terrific.
Okay, what is the campus plan for the spring 2021 semester? When will we know if we're coming back in the spring? And a second related question, will all the class options be up and available for us when it comes time to register for spring classes?
Okay, so everyone should assume that yes, we will be coming back in the spring. That is the plan. And we expect that we will mirror this semester in terms of course availability, in terms of on-ground, online, hybrid, high flex. It is true that we're going to learn from this semester and adjust accordingly. Registration, I don't know what date registration is scheduled for.
Well, in October, the class schedule becomes available, and yes, all the classes will be in the class schedule again.
So assume that registration is as usual. I think the advantage this time around is that you won't see a lot of changes moving up to the semester as there were class schedule changes, particularly modality changes going as we got closer to August. I think folks are going to know exactly what their courses are and how they are being delivered. So I would plan for something that's similar to what we're doing now.
Absolutely. And students, reach out to your academic advisors early to make sure that you have the right opportunity to connect with them before your registration period becomes available.
And any significant changes to the spring semester rather, particularly as it pertains to spring break, et cetera, we'll know more information about that within the week.
Right, and those are system-wide decisions.
Those are system-wide
as well.
decisions, yes.
Yes. In previous meetings, the provost mentioned the option to cease the tenure clock for untenured folks. When I approached the union, it seems this is not an option yet. When do you expect this to become an option?
I don't know the answer to that question. I will say that the provost and I would be supportive given current circumstances. However, that is a decision that, since it is part of the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, that is a negotiation that needs to happen between AAUP and the system, the Connecticut State College and University system. So that is not a campus-specific decision. So I would encourage that, I'm assuming it's a faculty member, I would encourage that faculty member to speak to their local AAUP leadership, and further, they may want to speak to their system-wide AAUP leadership. I do think that as the semester continues, there will probably be some questions about all of these types of things, given the present situation.
Sure.
Sure.
Will the university and CSCU's response to the current fiscal crisis include a robust effort to lobby the state legislature and governor for the additional funds needed to continue to offer public higher education in Connecticut? Or will those efforts be limited primarily to budget cutting and resource reallocation as they have been over most of the last decade and a half?
Yes, yes, and yes. Look, we're going to be we're going to face our largest deficit, and we should assume that the entire state of Connecticut is going to experience a significant deficit. So we're not going to be the only ones who are asking for dollars. So of course we'll continue to be aggressive, both at a southern level and at a system level, to fight for dollars. But I also want to be realistic that we're going to fight that fight, and we're going to fight hard, but there are only going to be so many dollars. And we do need to be prepared for the possibility that if the state or the federal government, because the federal government has come through, we're going to have to make some decisions institutionally. And I spoke earlier in my address to the financial task force that we're developing. You can't cut your way out of this, this type of deficit. So really the question's going to be, are we spending the dollars we have in the right way? How are they allocated? How do we generate additional sources of revenue in new and different ways? And I said this before, and what does it mean for Southern to potentially be a smaller institution? I think that's an important question and an important conversation to have, because we have, at its peak, Southern had nearly 13,000 students. Now we're shy of 10,000 students. So
it's hard to say what it's going to be to recover from our smaller first-year class, even.
That's right. Hard to say. So, and the smaller first-year class, we saw a drop of about 25%. That actually stays with us for 4 years. That class will be a 25% smaller freshman class this year, sophomores next year, et cetera. So that is a long-term issue, not a one-year issue.
And I will say, while our operating budgets are a small percentage of the overall, I think it's, I've impressed upon the student affairs team that we all have to be responsible in our spending. And it's time to really think a little bit harder about what we need and how we spend. We need to do what we need to do, but saving some dollars might be in everybody's best interest, even if it is a small percentage of the whole. Two more questions right now, at least.
Okay.
The faculty that has been teaching online for 2 semesters knows what platforms work best for class delivery. Yet, in spite of this, the use of specific platforms is being prohibited, even though some of them are not conducive to recreate an on-ground experience for students. Is there any chance that administration would reconsider which platform can best reproduce classroom experience during these challenging times?
That's a fair question. I'm going to guess we're talking about Zoom here, because the system has essentially said you should not be using Zoom. They've grandfathered that in until December or January. And the issue surrounding that has had to do with security. And I can't remember what the term is, but
Zoom bombing?
Zoom bombing, thank you. There has been some Zoom bombing in classes and at events across the CSUs. And so that's been a major problem. Now, if the security issue is resolved, there may be a different discussion. That is not a campus-based decision that can be made. That is a decision that is being made at the system level. I do know that AAUP is in conversations with the system office about this, and I expect those conversations to continue to happen. But as it relates to platforms on our own campus, there are a number of platforms that our faculty are using and that our staff are using. And I have asked the provost, the leadership of the Faculty Senate, the Faculty Leadership Council as well, to work with the administration to get a sense of what are the best platforms for our students and for our faculty, and where should we be investing our resources in terms of providing those platforms. Because I think you and I have talked about this before, while it is true that students are pretty good at navigating all of these platforms, there are a lot of them. And it can be overwhelming for a student because one professor is using one platform and another's using another and counseling is using another. I mean, it can be overwhelming, so.
Yes, we are hearing that from students, that it is hard to even to remember which class is using which platform on which day you're supposed to do what. So yes, I'm empathetic with the students on this one.
So I think we're gonna continue to have those conversations because I really do think that if we can consolidate platforms and be consistent across the institution, it also makes it easier for our IT operation to be able to help support our faculty and our students even more if our platforms are consolidated.
Sure. So President Joe, I have one last question.
Oh, okay.
When do you believe you will release the pause button on grad level data collection?
I don't know if I know the answer to that either. I'll have to check with the provost, but I think that there has actually been a lot of data that has been collected in the graduate school.
And for NECHI, we've done a lot of data collection and analysis.
Thank you. We're doing quite a bit for NECHI. As you know, Manahar just arrived last year, so I'm sure he's doing quite a bit. But our attentions have been focused in other places as well. So I guess I have to ask people to continue to be patient as we sort through all of that. Any other questions at the moment?
That's all we've got.
Okay, I think we're gonna see if other questions come in. What I'd like to encourage folks to do is actually ask questions through the link that's been provided. And if we haven't answered your questions here, we will answer your questions like we've done in previous iterations of our virtual town halls. So write your questions. You can continue to write those questions and ask those questions, and someone will respond with some answers. In addition to that, your question may already be posted on the Covet site. So I really encourage you to go take a look to the FAQ sheet to see what questions are listed. There's a lot of information there that I think can be helpful for folks. So we hope that this has been helpful. We hope that we were able to answer some of your questions. And my guess is that we'll be seeing a lot of you mostly virtually, and you'll have ongoing questions. But for now, I want to wish everyone well. Tracy, thank you very much for assisting today. And I'll ask that all of us continue to do our part. Wear your mask, social distance, and make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and each other and being patient and supportive of one another as we continue to focus on our 5 principles of dignity, respect, kindness, compassion, and civility. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we will see you on campus.